It's time for our first mailbag of the offseason. Colby, hit it.
You are Locked On Mariners, your daily Seattle Mariners podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Ahoy, sailors. It is Thursday, October 23rd, 2025. This is Ty Gonzalez and Colby Patnode for the Locked On Mariners podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Download the FanDuel app today. And as always, if you want to hear from me and Colby even more and help support the show, we have a Patreon. It's called Control the Zone, and on there we talk Mariners, Seahawks, all that good stuff. For more information, go to patreon.com/control the zone. Link in the description. Let's open up the mailbag for the first time this offseason and answer some of your Mariners questions. Alex wants to know if it's not Eugenio Suarez or Ben Williamson, who are some possible third base options.
I mean, one of the, I guess, more obvious, less obvious, I don't know, names was mentioned, I believe, by Kramer yesterday. And that could be Colt Emerson, who we know finished the year in AAA. We know that he worked out with the Mariners during their little bye week that they had. And we know that he was, a part of the original taxi squad. And to me, and we said this when it happened, the fact that they called him up in September, called him up to Tacoma in September, leads me to believe that the Mariners are very much going to give him a real opportunity to make the opening day roster next year. Now, it should be at shortstop. JP Crawford should not be preventing Colt Emerson from playing shortstop because Emerson is just significantly better defensively than JP. But we know that the Mariners care about he's the veteran, so he gets to have the job until he dies type of thing. But, if they're not willing to play him at shortstop, they might be willing to play him at third base. So keep an eye on Emerson. And probably a bit like Cole Young last year, where Young probably had a shot to win the opening day job entering spring training, but then he got hurt and he just never really had a good opportunity. So you might see something similar with Emerson, but I do think Emerson is going to be in the conversation for that job with Ben Williamson. Probably not with Gino. I don't really see much of a path for him to get brought back. There are a couple of names on the international market. Murakami is the big one. He's really more of a DH. He should be playing third base, but he has been linked to the Mariners already. Some of it might be because Seattle always gets linked to the Japanese players when they come over. So it's sometimes hard to tell fact from fiction on that one. But Murakami, big time raw power. He pretty much can hit pitches down the middle of the plate very far, and everything else is a big question mark. So we'll see if he is somebody the Mariners are interested in. I kind of doubt it. There's also a player named Kazuma Okamoto. Akamoto. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing that. He was announced today that he will officially be posted. He's 29 years old. Murakami's 26. He is a guy who has 30 home run power in Japan. He hits for a pretty decent average. Defensively, he's not great at third base. Based on what I've read about his defense, I would say it sounds very similar to how we would describe Gino's defense. Like, it's fine. You live with it. The question is there, can he hit? Can he make that transition to the big leagues? He struggled on pitches, over 94 miles an hour, but you also don't see a lot of fastballs over 94 in Japan. So it could just be he just needs to get reps there and he'll be fine. So we'll see how that goes. But those are a couple of options there. Okamoto, sorry again. Apologies. Murakami, Colt Emerson is definitely a possibility. If they want to go free agent, if they want to go veteran, they were linked to Yohan Moncada last year. He will be a free agent this year. Obviously the injuries there, but he was pretty good hitter. Memory serves. He's a pretty good hitter this year when he was healthy.
Yeah, he was. He's a switch hitter, but he should probably only hit against righties as a lefty. He was really bad against lefties this year. They didn't deploy him much against them either.
Right. And then there's like a couple like Willie Castro type, Luis Rengifo type like that. Possibly Ahmad Rosario Doesn't have a ton of third base experience, but there are some cheaper veteran options. Castro will probably cost a little more, but Rengifo, you're kind of hoping for a bounce back from him. You would be. And then obviously the 2 Japanese players coming over, they're complete wild cards. You don't know what you're going to get from those guys. So yeah, I mean, there are some options, and none of those guys are trade candidates. Maybe this is the winter Alec Boehm finally gets moved and it's a reasonable price instead of the insanity that Dombrowski was asking for last year. But yeah, there are some options, but I do feel like Williamson's the heavy favorite right now, and I don't.
Yeah, I know this wasn't your question, but yeah, if I just had to, and obviously a lot can happen in the next few months, but if I just had to bet what the third base situation is going to be, I think it's going to be Ben Williamson to start the year, and they're just going to hope that to the end of April or sometime in the middle of May, and then it's going to be Colt Emerson. Next question here from it's a bat emoji. I guess, like, I don't know. There's no name here. It's just a bat emoji.
Something Windex.
Yeah, Ephraim Windex. There you go. Is there precedent for playoff revenue actually boosting a team's next season payroll significantly? We obviously don't have a lot of data to extrapolate upon as Mariners fans. Yeah, there's actually a very recent example of this. The Diamondbacks, after they went to the World Series in 2023, they went out, they got Eduardo Rodriguez, they got Lourdes Gurriel Jr. They re-signed him. They traded for Gino. They got Jordan Montgomery. Then last winter, they got Corbin Burns. So they took their payroll to a place that it had never gone to before after going to the World Series, surprisingly. So yeah, there absolutely is for this, and it's very, very, very recent.
Yeah, and I would say it's pretty common too. After you make a deep playoff run, typically payroll will go up for at least the next couple of years. Like the Diamondbacks right now, they're talking about having to cut some payroll this winter. And that's fine. They'll be able to do that. But yeah, usually it does. There's a little bit of a bump for a couple of years as teams try to capitalize on the momentum of the fan base, and they can make more money by having an exciting offseason to bring people in April, May, and then they can play on how close we were last year, I think, for most of the 2026 season in this case. So yeah. Again, will the Mariners ownership do that? If I had to bet money, no, that would be the smart bet. But is there precedent? Yeah, I mean, the Arizona Diamondbacks are right there.
All right, we'll answer more of your questions here in just a moment. But first, a reminder, this episode of the Locked On Mariners podcast is brought to you by FanDuel and Rougiette. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. FanDuel makes every game more exciting, whether you're watching your team or just keeping an eye on your fantasy lineup. It's quick, easy, and the best way to add a little more energy to Sundays. So, are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. Fellas, you've probably heard of Viagra or Cialis. Maybe you've even tried them. But if you're looking for something beyond the usual pill, it's time to meet Rougiette Go Long. This isn't just another ED pill. It's a total game changer for confidence. Go Long combines 2 doctor-trusted medications and 1 dual-action formula, so you can get hard and go the distance. The effects can last up to 36 hours. That's confidence all day, all night, and even into the next day. Ready to level up your confidence in the bedroom? Head to RUGIET.com and use the promo code LOCKEDONMLB for 15% off your first order. That's RUGIET.com, promo code LOCKEDONMLB. Make sure to use our code so they know we sent you. And you're listening to the Locked On Mariners podcast. It's our first mailbag of the offseason. Let's get back into your questions. Kane wants to know, should we expect at any point going into the 2026 season to see Cade Anderson, Ryan Sloan, or Durangelo Senja in the Mariners rotation? Sloan, I'd be very surprised. Senja and Anderson, I think we will see them at some point.
I would say this. I don't think you should expect any of them to be in the Mariners rotation. But I do think that if one of them is going to end up in the Mariners rotation at some point this year. I think it will be Cade Anderson. I wouldn't be surprised at all if like Senja made some starts some point during the year, but like I don't think he's actually going to be like in the rotation. Like how Logan Evans made starts this year for the Mariners, but he wasn't really like in the rotation. I think that's probably what Senja is going to be next year if he's still here. Obviously, if any of these guys are still here, you never know. But yeah, I think Anderson is probably the guy most likely. He's just the most polished. He's the closest, despite not throwing a pitch in professional baseball. Senja is really interesting because you look at his overall numbers. They're kind of like, when you take out his numbers as a left-handed pitcher, they're actually pretty good. So, there's still some stuff to polish up there with Senja. But yeah, I think both of those guys probably make their major league debut at some point. I don't know if either one of them become mainstays in the rotation. Like once they get in, they're not leaving. Sloan, I would be very surprised by. I wouldn't be shocked if Sloan got a cup of coffee, but I would be very surprised if he was like one of the 5 starters for any kind of extended period of time in 2026. Senja, I could see it. Yeah, Senja, I could see it. Probably would take a couple of season-ending injuries for that to happen. Anderson, I could see him entering the rotation like, I don't know, sometime in June or July and just kind of holding on to that spot all year. But expecting, young players to be everyday big leaguers, at least starting pitchers, probably wouldn't, but that's semantics. So, yeah, I think I probably agree with Ty. I think we see Senja and I think we see Anderson, more Anderson than Senja. And then I think Sloan would be, I mean, I don't want to put it past him, but like, yeah, I think that'd probably be pushing it a little bit on Ryan Sloan.
Kevin wants to know, what are your thoughts on bringing in Kyle Schwarber? It won't happen. It won't happen. But that would be fun. It would be super fun. I'd love that. I love Kyle Schwarber. Having him and Cal Raleigh in the same lineup together would be incredible. That would be cinema. But no, it's not going to happen.
Before I inceptioned the idea of Tarek Skubal into Ty's mind, this was going to be his obsession this winter. It was during the summer. I did think about it a lot in the summer. Did I have a MLB The Show franchise going on for 2026 for the Mariners where Kyle Schwarber was on the Mariners? Maybe. Sure. I don't know. I mean, you'd be your best leadoff hitter since Ichiro. So, it's not going to happen. He's a DH only, which isn't a huge deal because he's a really good one. But it's just he's going to make. He's 33 years old now, 34 years old. He's going to make $100 million with no defensive versatility. It's not going to happen. It would be a fun addition. Don't get me wrong, but no, if the Mariners are going to spend $100 million on a player, it's not going to be a full-time DH. It's just not their style. But I mean, tell me the lineup is Schwarber, Cal, Julio, like Naylor hitting 4th or whatever. Yeah. Or maybe it's Schwarber, Schwarber, Julio, Naylor, Cal, like any way you want to slice those 4 guys. Again, assuming they re-sign Naylor. I could get down with that, but it is not going to happen. It's just no.
Would be fun though. Mm-hmm. Katie wants to know, would the priority in a JP Crawford trade be dumping salary or would it be getting a positive return? I think he can do both. Because while he's been a bad defensive shortstop, there aren't that many up-the-middle players, and he is still going to be an up-the-middle player who can hit a little bit. He might wind up playing second base for whatever team acquires him, which is fine. I think he would be fine playing second base. And he's making very reasonable money for the player that he ultimately is. So, yeah, I think you could do both. I don't think you're going to get like a lot for him, but I think you could get the salary off the books and it wouldn't be like Sebi Zavala and Carlos Vargas,
Yeah, I mean, like JP, by the way, almost a 3-win player. Like, again, 2.8 F4. I don't know what he was in D-War. You get him for 1 year. It's only $11 million. Keep in mind, every win is worth about $8 to $10 million, depending on what formula you want to use. So the open market would tell us that JP Crawford was worth about $20 million this year. a little bit more than that. And the team acquiring him would only have to pay him 11. He's also 30 years old, not 34. So there's pretty good reason to suspect that the bat will be roughly what it was last year, which is, lots of contact, a little bit of pop, high on base percentages, can get hot and carry for a while. Probably going to be decent at second. Again, you can live with it at shortstop. The Mariners were, one of the last 3 teams standing with him as their everyday shortstop. So you can win with JP Crawford at shortstop. I think it's definitely not just a pure salary dump. You're not going to get like a legitimate stud, prospect or multiple years of a JP Crawford in another spot. But I do think that there are some similarities here to the Jorge Polanco trade that the Mariners made to get Polanco in the first place. And you remember that was, Gabriel Gonzalez and
Justin Topa, Darren Bowen. And Desclafani. Yeah.
To kind of even out the money. And the Mariners might do that. Like that maybe the Mariners don't save money, but they kind of reallocate it by like acquiring a reliever or something who's making like $10 million bucks, along with a good but not great prospect, a lottery ticket, and somebody who might be able to help them out of the bullpen in like a, swing role or whatever. I think you could get something similar to that for JP, especially this year. Again, there's not a lot of shortstops out there. Not a lot of middle infield talent available. And also, by the way, 2026, there are like 4 shortstops who are set to be free agents total after this next year, and he's one of them. So, I think there's going to be some value there if the Mariners want to go that route. They shouldn't give him away, but they should certainly be willing to listen. And so I think they could accomplish a little bit of both. But I think the priority has to be, trading him and getting something for him, because he's a 3-1 player. Those guys don't grow on trees. So you shouldn't just toss him away because you're frustrated or anything like that. And as much as I don't want to see him at shortstop next year, if he's the second baseman, that's totally fine by me. I'm not crying about that. That's a good second baseman right there. And if he's the shortstop, it's not like the biggest disaster in the world. It's just not something I would prefer. So you could do both at the same time.
All right, we got a couple more of your questions coming your way in just a moment. But first, a reminder, this episode of the Locked On Mariners podcast is brought to you by PrizePicks. This episode of Locked On Mariners is brought to you by PrizePicks, the daily fantasy app where making the right call can actually pay off. You and I make decisions every day, but on PrizePicks, being right means cashing in. With football back, PrizePicks is the simplest and fastest way to get in on the action. Just pick more or less on 2 to 6 player projections, and you can turn your takes into real prizes, all in less than 60 seconds. It's quick, easy, and a great way to follow along with football. Download the PrizePicks app today and use the promo code LOCKEDONMLB to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's promo code LOCKEDONMLB for $50 in lineups after your first $5 play. PrizePicks, it's good to be right. And you're listening to the Locked On Mariners podcast. It's our first mailbag of the offseason. We'll have another one coming next Monday. But with how weird the week was and the game on Monday and all that, we had to push this mailbag to a little later on this week. We might use some of the questions because we got a lot of questions, and we got a lot of pretty good questions from you guys that didn't make the cut here. So we might use some of those for the next mailbag, but we'll also put a tweet out before Monday. Anyway, D Panky wants to know, what's your confidence level in both of these statements with your thoughts? 1, the Mariners will not rely on the long ball going forward as much as they did in 2025. And 2, the Mariners will have more homegrown talent on their roster going forward than in 2025.
Statement 1, 0%. Statement 2, 100%.
Okay.
The Mariners don't want to hit fewer home runs. They want to hit home runs. And by the way, the reason the Blue Jays are going to the World Series is because of home runs. Like during the regular season, the Blue Jays didn't hit a ton of home runs. They hit enough, but in the playoffs, they started mashing homers. That's how you win in the playoffs. That is how the Dodgers beat the Brewers, with pitching and homers. Like that is the formula. So even though like you look at the Blue Jays, you're like, oh well, the Blue Jays beat you with contact and all that. It's like, no, the Blue Jays beat you with home runs, and their pitching was better than yours. Like they got hot with the power at the right time. Can there be more contact oriented, approach from the Mariners? Sure, it's possible. I mean, it's certain, but the Mariners aren't looking at their offense and being like, you know what the problem is? We were too reliant on home runs. Nope, because they hit them. They hit the home runs.
No, I would think that, if we're talking about contact, adding more contact, it's just to set up your power hitters better, to get more 2-run, 3-run home runs, grand slams, right? Which is, that's what the Blue Jays were doing, right? Like the Ernie Clements of the world and the Isaiah kind of Falefas and Andres Jimenez is, I would think, like from a context standpoint, it's just in terms of getting better production out of the bottom of your lineup than what you did. And obviously that was a big reason that the Mariners lost this series.
Right. Some diversity from your role players would be nice. Like not every role player should be Dominic Canzone or Luke Raley, where their role is to hit a home run. So having a guy like Ernie Clement, who crushes left-handed pitching, but also gets on base and hits line drives, like adding a guy like that to the bottom of your lineup, fine. But they're not going to be like, oh, you know what? We don't want Randy Arozarena because he strikes out 26% of the time. That's not going to be the reason they move on from guys like that. So, and I guess if they do like bring in Naylor and he's here for a full year, I think just naturally that'll cut down on the strikeouts a lot just because he doesn't strike out, so but I don't think they're intentionally going to go into this offseason to be like, we need to make more soft contact. That's really what we need. And again, it doesn't mean that they won't go out and get a player who like fulfills that, that's their style of play. I'm not saying that they won't go get that guy. It's just like, they're not going to look at they're not going to tear down their offense and be like, whoa, way too many home runs, guys. We need to move on.
Yeah. I think what you're ultimately trying to get to is like, are they going to overcorrect like they did going into 2024? I don't think they will. I don't think they will this time. No, I do think that maybe they will prioritize towards the bottom of their lineup a bit more contact. But like in terms of like, we're going to move on from this guy because he strikes out too much, I don't think they're going to do that. I don't think they're going to go like, hey, we're just too reliant on the home run ball. No, it was a winning formula this year. They were one of the final 4 teams in the league for a reason. Because they hit a lot of home runs, and obviously Cal was a big part of that, but it was also because you had Randy and you added Josh Naylor and you added Eugenio Suarez, and obviously Julio got back to being a 30 home run guy and all that. So
right. So yeah, I don't think they're gonna freak out about the end and just say like, oh, it didn't work. Like, no, I think they would look at it and said it absolutely worked.
Yeah. I think they
a little bit more.
Yeah, I think they're just going to look, or at least this would be my preference, is to look to better situate themselves to set the table better for and more consistently for Cal and for Julio.
If they could go get like a really good leadoff hitter that also happens to play like a position you don't have an answer, like Nico Horner, just for example, right? Like that would be great. I think that would help a ton. But they're not going to not be interested in like Kyle Tucker because he hits home runs, like I think you guys know what I'm trying to say. Ty said it pretty well. As for more homegrown talent, I mean, just naturally, like we know Colt Emerson is going to be a part of this thing. Yeah. We know that Cole Young is going to be a part of this thing. We're probably going to see, I mean, again, unless they get traded, but we're probably going to see Laz Montez or Michael Arroyo, maybe both at some point this year. We're probably going to see Senja at some point. We're probably going to see Harry Ford we've already seen, and we're going to see more of next year. Again, assuming some of these guys will probably be traded this winter, but you're going to see a lot of those guys. And so, you are going to see that. There was a little bit of a lull. The Mariners went really, prep heavy, and those guys take a little bit longer to get to the big leagues, although all things considered, the fact that Colt Emerson is knocking on the door already and Cole Young is, played in the big leagues and found a little bit of success, like that's pretty quick for prep guys. But they went high school heavy for a couple drafts, and they kind of left them with this little gap of time, 2024, 2025, where they didn't quite have the answers they needed in their farm system. Well, now the next wave, as Jerry puts it, like they're here. They are knocking on the door. They're already on the roster in some cases. So, we're definitely going to see more homegrown players, at least offensively. I don't know if you can get more homegrown, pitching. Although you're going to with Cade Anderson.
Yeah, I think we'll see like the Tyler Clevelands and guys like that in the bullpen at some point. Maybe even factor into the competition towards the back end of the bullpen, in spring training.
By back end, I assume you mean like the seventh and eighth guys,
front end,
right.
yeah, whatever.
It's kind of backwards with the bullpen, whatever.
Yeah.
Like they'll be competing for the 24th, 25th, 26th roster spot.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah,
I think so too.
Yeah, I think we'll see some of those guys that we talked about as maybe taking a shot on there towards the end of the season. All right, last question of the day from Josh. All things considered, is this possibly the first offseason that the Gilbert Kirby decision that we've all been dreading might actually be made? That's what I've been wondering. I guess what I've really been wondering is like, how is the front office going to react to what we saw from the rotation this year? And how is the league going to react to that as well? Like, how are they going to value Logan Gilbert? How are they going to value George Kirby after the year that just happened?
You can't sell low on those guys. And that would be my concern right now, is that if you traded them this winter, you'd be selling low.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's an interesting question, and obviously their prices this winter would be lower than they were last winter, regardless of how they pitched, just because they have one less year of club control. But neither of those guys pitched particularly well. I mean, I know Logan had the good numbers and all that, but again, we watched with our eyes what happened to Logan Gilbert this year, and we know that he took a step back. Also, he missed a month with the elbow thing. George missed 6 weeks with the shoulder thing. So there's going to be concerns there. I'm not saying no, they shouldn't, but A, they don't really have a replacement ready to go just yet. And B, like, they might be selling low, and I'm not interested in selling Cy Young quality pitchers for below what I think they're worth, just because, I felt like I was going to do it this winter anyways. I'm not going to settle for a trade package for Kirby or Gilbert. So
the other thing too is like, you're probably, I would say that I lean towards it being very likely that Luis Castillo is not going to be here in 2026. Maybe I'm wrong on that. And maybe because the no trade clause doesn't lift until January 1st, by that point, there just aren't as many suitors as maybe the Bears would prefer, and it just doesn't really work out. And maybe they are willing to just kind of keep his money on the books and still be able to do whatever else they want to do. Hopefully that is the case. Hopefully they are willing to do that, so they don't paint themselves in a corner. But look, you're probably, I would say that you're probably going to have to subtract from your rotation anyway. By trading Castillo. So on top of that, are you also going to be willing to trade Gilbert or Kirby? And now you have to address 2 spots in your rotation. And because like Cade Anderson isn't going to start the year in the rotation.
No.
Durangelo St. Joe's not going to start the year in the rotation.
No.
So like you can't go into the year with Logan Evans and Emerson Hancock both locked into your rotation. Just can't do it. And I don't think the Mariners would want to do that either.
They would agree. Yeah,
I think they would agree with that. So like, would you be in would they feel like they're in a position where they could actually properly address 2 spots in their rotation? I don't know. Now, if they're trading Gilbert or Kirby, they're probably addressing one of those spots anyway via the trade. I would think they were probably getting a young arm back that they like, that they're putting in the rotation. Maybe they're also doing that in the Castillo deal. I don't know. So it's possible that you just make that happen within the trade itself. Right. But if not, like, are they going to have the money that makes sense to spend on, backfilling that role? Right.
Mm-hmm. I mean, plus hypothetically, it doesn't really matter which one. Let's say they do trade Castillo and they trade, we'll say Gilbert, just because he has one less year of club control. Although I think they'd prefer to trade Kirby, but whatever. So you trade those 2 guys. Okay, well, so your leftovers, like the holdovers that you're carrying over, Brian Wu, who missed, basically the last month with a pec injury, who has a history of arm issues in his career. Mm-hmm. You have Bryce Miller, who's going to have an offseason elbow surgery. Forearm. That's minor, but who knows? You never know how that goes. And then you would have George Kirby left, who missed a month and a half with a shoulder thing. And shoulder things are bad. And Kirby also wasn't nearly as good as he was the year before. And so now you've traded Castillo and Gilbert, and it's not like the three guys you had are beacons of health themselves. And now it's like, okay, well, and what, now I have two either young, guys I got in the trade, or I have two, Adrian Hauser types that I'm hoping hit. Like it really can get pretty messy pretty quick. So you do have to be careful there. Again, next winter, when you feel good about Anderson, when you feel good about what you have in Senja, and maybe even Ryan Sloan by that point, I think that makes more sense. Maybe even in July, it might make more sense. But I think at most you can trade one starter this winter. And the one that makes the most sense to trade by far is Luis Castillo. And I don't even know that makes a ton of sense just based on where you are. So it's a very tricky thing. I think it's a fair question to ask. But my biggest concern would be, how do you replace those guys in your rotation? You don't have them in your farm system. They're not ready yet. Like you might have them in the farm, but you're not ready to test that theory yet. And B, how low are you selling on these guys? Because I'm not willing to take 90 cents on the dollar for what Logan Gilbert is. I'm not doing it. So those would be my concerns.
I'm just really curious how Jerry DiPoto and Justin Hollander view specifically George Kirby and Logan Gilbert right now.
Yeah.
Like if you ask them in the media right now, they would be like, "Oh, we feel great about those guys." But I'm talking about like, how do they truly feel after what they saw this year? And that is factoring in the injuries, right? And how does that impact maybe how they feel about extending them, either one of them? I always felt like it was Gilbert over Kirby, if they had to pick one over the other to extend. But now because Logan has this elbow thing and, he really struggled to put guys away in a timely fashion this year. And he was a problem in the playoffs outside of that one start in Detroit. And, when he came out of the bullpen that one time in game 5, like, has that changed how they feel about him? It's possible it didn't, right? It's possible they're just like, his elbow was kind of messed up and he was just like fighting through it and he was battling through it. And
maybe it even makes him cheaper to sign on an extension.
Yeah. Maybe they actually view that in a way as a positive for their negotiations. But I do wonder about that. I do wonder if maybe that factors into something here in the off season. But again, it's just so complicated of a thing, especially if you're already planning on trading Luis Castillo once that no trade clause lifts here in a couple months. That's going to do it for our show. Thank you so much for joining us here on the Locked On Mariners podcast. For Colby Patnode, I'm Titan Gonzalez. Be sure to give us a follow on Twitter at @LO_Mariners. You can follow me at Titan Gonzalez and Colby at CPAT11. That's CPAT11. We're also on Blue Sky. You can follow me at TDG, Colby at MLB Colby, and the show at Locked On Mariners. You can also find us on Instagram at Locked On Mariners. Have yourself a beautiful baseball day, and we'll see you next time. Peace.